Okay, we're doing Unit 7, Lesson 7. So let's get the learning targets. I can explain what absolute value means in situations involving elevation. I can use absolute value to describe elevations, and I can use inequalities to compare rational numbers and the absolute values of rational numbers. So if we're looking at 7.1, we're doing opposites, which we've talked about before. And excuse me for a second because I didn't get my document camera and I want you to see my paper. So here we go. So you can either watch on, look at the screen, the openupresources.org, the student view, and write your answers down on a piece of paper, or you can print out the papers that I put in Google Classroom for the Unit 7 materials, it's called. And then tomorrow I will have a video with the answers to the practice problems. So these are called the student-facing task statements. This is the lesson you would have in your book. And then at the end of the lesson, you usually have practice problems. Those are separate from what we're doing here. So that you need to do that separately and then the cool down. So for opposites, number 1 says a rational number. A is a rational number. Choose a value for A and plot it on the number line. So I'm going to show you that on this screen. Sorry. That little blue thing is in my way. I'm trying to get around it. Okay, I want to go like this and then like this so you can see it. There we go. Sorry. Okay, so I can pick it. A can be any number you want it to be. So if I'm doing A as 3, and I can put A there, then for number 2, based on where you plotted A, plot negative A on the same number line. So that would be plot negative A on the number line. So that would be negative 3 would be negative A. What is the value of the negative A that you plotted? Mine is negative 3. Noah says if A is a rational number, negative A will always be a negative number. Do you agree with Noah? And explain your reasoning. So rational numbers, remember, are all the numbers. They're decimals, they're fractions, they're positives, they're negatives. The only thing they're not are those kind of crazy numbers like pi. So he is actually incorrect. If A is a negative number, then negative A will be its opposite, which will be positive. So that's hard to grasp if you haven't done negative numbers, which you will do a lot more in 7th grade, but a negative and a negative makes a positive. So, and if the number were 0, then a negative A is also 0. So, and 0 is neither positive nor negative. So here we're going to write he is incorrect. All right, moving on to 7.2. A submarine is at an elevation of 100 feet. Negative 100 feet, 100, which is 100 feet below sea level. Let's compare the elevations of these 4 people to that of the submarine. So if Claire's elevation is greater than the elevation of the submarine, Claire is farther from sea level than the submarine. So let's take a look at the next page because they want us to make a chart. So if the submarine, is negative 100 feet, Claire's elevation is greater than the elevation of the submarine. So she could be at 150 feet. 150 feet is greater than negative 100. So the absolute value of 150 or 150 feet. So let's try that again. So if Hans's elevation is greater than the elevation of the submarine, Han is closer to sea level than is the submarine. Oops, I skipped Andre. We'll come back to Andre. So we need to, any number that is, so we're doing Han. 20, for example. 20 is greater than negative 100. So the absolute value of 20 or 20 feet. So these can all be different. You're picking what you want. So we're writing a possible elevation for each person using greater than, less than, or equal to compare the elevation of that person to the submarine, and using an absolute value to tell how far away the person is from the sea level, which is 0. All right, so let's go back to Andre. Andre's elevation is less than the elevation of the submarine. So if Andre is less than negative 100, he can be negative 200. So negative 200, how does that compare to the submarine? Is less than negative 100. And the absolute value of negative 200 is 200 or 200 feet. Okay, and then let's do Lynn. Lynn's elevation is the same distance away from sea level as the submarine. So possible elevation is 100. 100 is greater than negative 100, but the distance from sea level is the same because the absolute value of 100 is also right, the submarine is 100, right? So it's 100 feet, even though it's positive, the absolute value is the same as the negative. It's 100 feet in either direction. Okay. Number 2, Priya says her elevation is less than the submarine's and that she is closer to sea level. Is this possible? And the answer to that would be Priya's description is impossible because any elevation that is less than the elevation of the sea level of the submarine below the submarine must be further away from sea level. So if she's less, she would be further down in the water than the submarine, which is further away from sea level. So this answer is impossible. Okay. We're on 7.3. Mix and match. Inequality, mix and match. Here are some numbers and inequality symbols. Work with your partner. So you are your own partner. So you can pause the video and try to figure it out. So pause the video and write true comparison statements. So it says one partner should select two numbers and one comparison symbol and use them to write a true statement using symbols. The other partner should use a sentence in words the same meaning using the following phrases. So is equal to, is the absolute value of, is greater than, is less than. For example, you could write 4 is less than 8, and the other person would write the words 4 is less than 8, and then switch roles. So you're just going to do both. And I want you to write 3 different ones, so in both ways. Okay, so pause and do that. And then I'll show you. Okay, so you paused and did that, right? Okay, so some responses from you guys won't be the same as these, but these are some examples. So negative 0.7 is greater than negative 6/3. And this is how you would write that. Negative 0.7 is greater than negative 6/3. 7 halves is less than 4. And to write that in words, 7 halves is less than 4. And then a third one you could do is the absolute value of negative 8 is equal to 8. And in words, it would look like this. The absolute value of negative 8 is 8. Okay, so there is an Are You Ready for More? And remember, I'm not putting those in Seesaw anymore, but if you want to do them just for fun, you can, and email them to me. There is a cool down, and there are practice problems. So you're doing the cool down and submitting that in Google Classroom, and then you're doing the practice problems and checking your answers with that with a video that I will provide for you tomorrow. Okay, that's it for today. Thanks, guys.